mean, it's going to be a hard thing to change, but I think it's the whole culture has to change. And I think, all tradespeople have to take responsibility. And if you see someone else on the job site who's not, taking appropriate safety precautions, we have to, gently encourage them that they have to.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Arthur Henderson. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Dr. Arthur Henderson, it is a pleasure to have you on the show today. I'll get into a little bit how we were introduced to each other, but I'm going to ask you like I have been asking all our Pro Talk guests. Are you healthy? Are you able to work normally? And is your family healthy? How's it going?
Right now, I'm healthy. My family's healthy, and I'm doing well at work. We're staying pretty busy right now. Coronavirus is starting to pick up in North Carolina, and we're staying busy with that.
And I should tell folks, you are an ER doctor.
Correct.
And so you were on the front lines, if anyone is, right?
That's correct.
So we were introduced because you sent an email to the Fine Homebuilding email box, editorial mailbox, and it was really well written. And in magazine speak, we call what you sent in over the transom. That means this was unsolicited. You just sent this in, this review of this tool. It was called a dashboard, and it's expensive and somewhat niche. So in follow-up, I asked you, are you a professional carpenter? And you sent me this very well-written email describing your history. You wrote, you described your career path and your lifelong love of building. Can you please tell our listeners, like, your very circuitous career path?
Absolutely. It all started when I was younger. When I was in middle school, I really started getting into building and construction, and developed tremendous interest and passion for that. And when I was in high school, I was actually a pretty good student. I was, for the most part, a straight A student, but I had no intentions at all of going to college. I was ready to just get out and work in construction, and my company was going to be Art the Toolman Construction. I was all ready to go. And when I was in high school, I did a lot. I installed several HVAC systems. I remodeled, I believe it was 3 bathrooms. I put a second level on my parents' house.
You were in high school when you did all this stuff?
Correct. I was in high school.
How did you learn the skills to tackle such an elaborate project?
Well, I learned a lot by reading books at the time. I read pretty much books to get my hands on construction, which certainly was a great way to get information. And then in every project, I realized quickly what I didn't know and the things you can't always learn by reading books. Fortunately, when you're a young kid,
you don't know any better.
You don't know. But the good news is, there were a lot of people that were willing to give me tips and pointers. The electricians at the supply house seemed to feel bad for me if I got myself into some sort of pickle, and they would offer some good advice to me, which, so I learned a lot that way too.
So you wanted to be in construction, but your parents were like, no, you should do something else. Is that correct?
They were reasonably well supportive of me, even if I went into construction. But I think certainly there was a little disappointment. I remember the high school guidance counselor she was in tears that she couldn't convince me to go to college when I graduated from high school.
But then you did, right?
That's correct. The year after high school, I, worked and, did all sorts of construction projects on my own. And, I enjoyed it. I had a great time. And everyone that I knew that worked in the trades was kind of slowly trying to convince me, you really ought to go to college. Go to college. If you want to come back and do this, that's fine. But get your degree and just, put it on the wall if you don't want to use it. And you can always fall back on it later. So that's pretty much how it happened. I was, doing all sorts of projects, enjoying it. And then actually the woman who's currently my wife now I was doing a lot of work at her house, and, she encouraged me. I talked about medicine from time to time, that I thought it would be a cool job. And she encouraged me to get involved with a volunteer ambulance corps.
But prior to that, you got an engineering degree. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I went to New Jersey Institute of Technology and got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering.
And you were still working with your hands, though, for your then girlfriend who would become your wife, and I presume you're doing other projects and stuff too?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, I was doing all sorts of projects. I was once my time in school was over, that was it. It was time to start making sawdust. So,
And so she told you to start volunteering for this ambulance service, right?
yeah, that was her suggestion, and I took her up on it. So I took the EMT course, which really wasn't too hard. I was able to get that done on nights and weekends for a little bit while I was in college, and then I got involved in that. And it was actually my first ambulance call that really impressed me with medicine. We had a lady who had congestive heart failure, and we got to her house. This is my first call ever. I was just like, oh boy, I don't know if this lady's even going to live to see the hospital.
Yeah.
A half hour after we had our house, by the time we got her there, she looked much better. And that's when it really hit me. I was like, wow, this is amazing. We can do so much stuff to help people, and it's such a fascinating thing.
So then you decided to apply to medical school.
Correct.
And they didn't take you.
No, the first time I got waitlisted, and it didn't take me in. So in the interim, I got a master's in biomedical engineering. And then when I finished that, I applied again, and then they finally let me in. So,
and now you're a doctor in North Carolina.
Correct.
Can you tell me what hospital, or at least where it's at?
Sure. I work at a smaller hospital in Lincolnton, North Carolina. It's Atrium Health Lincoln. And we have an annual ER volume of about 45,000 patients per year. And, we're the only, so we see everything.
I bet you do. We'll get more into that. But so was someone in your family the one who introduced you to carpentry and woodworking, or was it a friend? How did you get that introduction to know that you loved it, or was it just innate?
Well, my dad was definitely a do-it-yourselfer, so he would do projects. Mostly, as I look back now, I think more so to save money than from passion for construction. But my neighbor growing up he was a union crane operator, and he always had things going on. He restored a 1928 Ford pickup truck, and I would go help him work on that all the time when I was younger. And
was he patient with you?
Oh yeah, he was very patient with me, and I learned a lot from him. And one of the things that really helped is he taught me, you have to have the right tools to get a job done. And that made all the world of a difference.
Yeah, I agree. So did you have shop classes? Was that still going on when you were going through high school?
I did. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, I did have shop class. 1 year was metal, 1 year was wood. And that also, I'm sure, was very helpful to fuel my passion for working with tools.
So you've been doing this now, it's fair to say, for decades, I would assume. What are some of your favorite projects, or is it all of them?
Yeah, I love a lot of things. I love plumbing. I love electrical. I still love doing HVAC, but
you're the only person I've ever met who said they love plumbing.
Oh, I love it. It's if you're neat, it really can showcase quality work. If you put all your pipes in nice and neat and have everything strapped in good, I can't get enough of it.
Do you work on your own house, or is this for family members and friends? And tell me where you have your outlet.
All of the above. My own house is always my testing grounds for, using new materials and products that I haven't really used anywhere else yet. And, it's when you work for a good price, it's always easy to find jobs to do. So my family always keeps me busy.
I can't help but I can't help but looking at your many tools, and cordless drill specifically, in the background. Can you tell me about your tool collection? When did you start buying stuff, and do you have favorites or many memorable purchases?
Yeah, I really started in 7th grade is when my tool collection really. So initially, I had mostly hand tools. Back in those days, I always found the local Sears was a glorious place to visit. They had all nice made USA hand tools, and they were reasonably affordable at that time. And my first major power tools were in the summer between 7th and 8th grade. Initially, my first was a Porter Cable 12-volt cordless drill. It was called the Magna Clench. I still have it, and I can't believe how I used to work on the thing. Unergonomic heavy tool I've ever seen in retrospect. But when I had it, boy, it was great.
Yeah.
And then the next thing was a sliding compound miter saw. I got the Hitachi C8FB. I believe it was the first sliding miter saw.
And how, as a young person, how did you have the $500 it took to buy that saw?
I was saving for quite a while, and I didn't quite have the money when I was putting a small deck on the back of the house, and I didn't have quite all the money. So my dad was kind enough to lend me what I needed to get it. So.
And he made you pay him back, even though you were building his deck?
I think he cut it a little bit, I believe. I don't remember the exact part, but I'm glad he did, because he taught me, some lessons about financial responsibility. So
that's true. Do you buy do you go to yard sales and flea markets and stuff and look for old stuff too? Is that part of your hobby, or are you like more practical than that?
If one's not out of my way and it's convenient, I'll stop in at a garage sale. But most of the time, it's out of need. I was doing a project, and you need another tool to get it done, and that's usually the time to buy it.
Do you do furniture making and cabinet making too? Is that part of your interest?
I've done quite a few tables, and I like doing cabinets and doors, but I don't really like build chairs or things like that. Built-in cabinets and things are definitely something I really enjoy doing.
What's your favorite tool you have presently?
Currently, I'm going to go with my dashboard workbench in conjunction with my Festool cordless track saw.
That's the tool. The dashboard is what you reviewed for the magazine.
Correct.
And we are going to put that in the magazine. I don't know when exactly that's going to show up, but you'll be a published Fine Homebuilding contributor.
It's an honor, let me tell you.
So back to the track saw. You mentioned in your second email of our earlier correspondence that you like to cut panels on the track saw with the dashboard, because you often see table saw injuries. Can you tell me about some of the gory things you've seen with regard to table saw?
Yeah, well, in general in America, it's thought that there's somewhere between 90 and 100,000 injuries per year that are somehow related to saws. Now, that includes miter saws, circular saws, table saws. That number is kind of a broad number. And the way injuries are reported, there's definitely more than that. A lot of weekend warriors who just show up in the ER with some sort of injury will likely not get into that statistic. A lot of that comes from people who are actually, employed, full-time in the construction industry is where a lot of those numbers come from. But typically, even at my hospital, we tend to see usually 3 or 4 table saw injuries a month.
Wow.
And fortunately, some of them are easy to fix, and it's just a little nick that just needs a few stitches. But many times people end up losing, have a partial amputation of a finger over them.
I know it's hard to answer, but what is a finger amputation with regard to recovery and dollars cost an individual or their insurance company?
Well, again, and like you said, it definitely depends on what kind of insurance they have. But even if you have good insurance, a lot of people have an ER copay that can be at least $500. And then, you may have some specialist visits with orthopedics afterwards. And if you have to go to the operating room and have something done, you're definitely looking at $1,000 for even a, more minor table saw injury for sure.
Can you tell when someone comes in what's happened when they're like, do you know without them telling you what the injury was caused by a table saw? Can you just tell by looking at it?
Many times. It's usually the same thing, right? Unfortunately, people don't use good push blocks, and otherwise they're just cutting something and the piece kicks back on them and they weren't really expecting it. And, their hand just happens to glide across the path of the blade.
Man. Do you have a saw stop?
I actually have 2. I have a cabinet one, and then I recently bought the portable saw stop as well. And, I always have this discussion with people, and they tell me the saw stop is just exorbitantly expensive. And, the portable one is about $1,300, which I realize is a lot of money, but you're going to spend, at least 300 to 500 on a quality portable job site saw anyway. And, one trip to the ER, you'll have, a $1,300 saw is very cheap compared to having one, even if it's a minor injury, the amount of lost time at work. And, it's, to me, the saw stop is a pretty cheap investment.
What about other stuff you've seen, like other saws or eye injuries, respiratory problems from trade or hobby work, falls, broken limbs? I'm sure you've seen all this stuff, right?
Absolutely. I would say the next thing that I see is the most devastating pattern of injuries is eye injuries. There's at least 2,000 visits to ERs throughout the country a month. Probably, again, the numbers are actually a lot higher than that for eye injuries. Fortunately, most commonly, people get a piece of sawdust or a metal chip in their eye. And in most cases, we can easily remove it. And generally, they have a corneal abrasion. They go on some antibiotics, and most people have a full recovery. Unfortunately, sometimes people get something in their eye that penetrates their globe, or if it goes in deep enough, you can actually cause damage to your retina, in which case then you have irreversible loss of vision. So,
and I presume you see falls too, right?
Yeah, we see falls. In fact, last week I had a pretty young guy, only 43, that fell off of his roof when he was putting a roof on, and he had some pretty severe fractures in both ankles. So, I guess for me, it's always, and what changes the way I work is it's usually something that would have been so easily avoided. And, we all get in a hurry, and, you don't want to go get a pair of safety glasses, or, I totally understand that it's inconvenient to be tied in and using harnesses when you're on the roof. But, again, the consequences of if something goes wrong, the consequences are steep.
You're still doing, home improvement and building projects. Like, have the things you've seen changed how you protect yourself during your projects?
Without question. I am super vigilant about having safety glasses, and a lot of times even a face shield if I'm using a grinder or a wire wheel. Safety glasses alone are not enough. You have to have full face protection. So I am, super vigilant to keep safety eyewear around. And I find the easiest thing to do, I just buy a lot of them and leave them everywhere, so I can't be lazy and not want to put them on. And fall protection is something that I definitely have been really stepping up my game. I have a full body harness and a rope grab and all that sort of stuff. And, any roof that's more than 5-on-12 pitch, it just isn't worth being up there without fall restraint equipment.
Do you think there's been a change in the mindset of people who work in the trades with regard to protecting themselves in the last few decades, or is it business as usual?
No, I think it's slowly starting to change. And it's going to be a hard thing to change, but I think it's the whole culture has to change. And I think, all tradespeople have to take responsibility. And if you see someone else on the job site who's not, taking appropriate safety precautions, we have to, gently encourage them that they have to, whatever they're doing, whatever it is, get safety glasses, use fall protection. And I was super happy in the last Fine Homebuilding magazine that came out. Not only was there an article on fall restraint and protection, but there was also an article on table saw safety, which definitely had a lot of good information about push blocks and other techniques to avoid table saw injuries.
Do you think we should be doing more of that stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not always the most fun article to read, so I understand that there's probably, you can only put so much of that in each issue. But yeah, I think things like that are going to definitely help change the culture.
So we've done table saw safety, fall protection recently. What do you think we should do next?
I know not terribly long ago there was a respiratory protection article that Matt had in there. I don't think I've remember seeing anything on eye protection, at least that I can recall in the last little bit. So, that might be a reasonable topic to address in the future.
Totally. You told me in your email that COVID-19 has made your already stressful job more difficult. Can you please tell me about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when COVID first started coming, North Carolina, we didn't have it initially. I know up in, the New York area and Washington, they were getting hit really hard, and we were just waiting for it. We thought, for sure, within the next few days it would come. And eventually it came. And the fact that we didn't have it right away made it a little bit better because at least we had a lot of case reviews that we could read from other clinicians who have been through it. We were able to.
You'll have to explain to me what that means. That means so you have some information on treatment options and recovery and how the disease progressed, I presume.
Exactly. One of the things that made it stressful and scary is that so little was known about it. When it first came out, nobody really knew, how do you treat it? What do you do? And for the most part, and it still is this way, most of the care is supportive care. If people get sick enough from it, they end up getting put on life support and in the ICU. And, we have a few different strategies of various medications and other things that we try to use to get people better. But it was kind of a big black box with a lot of unknowns. And, we thought, hydroxychloroquine, for example, might be helpful initially. And, all the early studies actually ended up showing that most of the medicines we were giving people were not helpful at all. So it's just stressful when you have a disease that's contagious and causing a lot of morbidity and mortality, and we don't really have a really good way to corral it and cure it.
Are you seeing cases continue to increase in North Carolina, or is it leveled off?
It looks like it's starting to level off now in the last few days, but it's the last 2.5 weeks we've been having a pretty sharp rise in cases.
Approximately how many people have come through your ER with COVID symptoms?
It's a good question. A lot. I don't know the exact number, but it is definitely a high number.
Hundreds?
In my hospital, I know as of now, I think we've had about 158 positive tests come back. And in North Carolina in general, we have about 130,000 cases in the state with about 2,050 deaths. So,
do you think that the medical community has everything they need to do a good job with this disease? Has that gotten better? Because I remember in the early outbreaks, there was just not enough gear.
Yeah, actually, the hospital system I work for, Atrium Health, I really have to give them a lot of credit. They've done a great job. They have gotten a tremendous amount of supplies. They right away came up with ways to sanitize N95 masks so that they could be reused. We were UV sanitizing them and even steam sterilizing them. And now we're at the point where we still save them when we're done with them, just in case we need to clean them and use them later. But we actually have a very good, adequate supply of new ones. So you can get a new one every day. So that's quite a blessing. It'd be stressful to have to, I saw some stuff in other places like New York where, they just simply did not have enough PPE supplies.
Do you worry about getting it or bringing it home to your family?
Yeah, absolutely. Every trade has, trade-offs and risks, I mean, if you're a roofer, your big risk is falling off a roof, and in my business in emergency medicine, one of the biggest risks is just catching a disease yourself. So absolutely.
You also told me in your email that you sometimes see tradespeople on your way to the hospital, and you'd long to be them. And do you think that's grass is always greener thinking, or do you think you would really love it?
I definitely think I would really enjoy working in the trades because, again, when I'm not at the hospital and practicing emergency medicine, that's what I like to spend all my time doing is construction projects. And, when I'm driving down the road on a nice day to go to work and I see, a lull set up and some guys framing a roof, I'm like, oh, man, that looks like a lot of fun. The one thing I love about construction work is, I find it to be, it's very mentally challenging because there's always some kind of problem that comes up on every job that you have to, come up with a workaround. And, with all the building science that goes into construction these days, I mean, working construction, you have to be a reasonably intelligent person. I really love working through all those problems and, deciding which materials you're going to use on the job. And it's just nice to even be outside and get some fresh air and enjoy sun. So not to say I don't love what I do. I mean, I do. I really love what I do, but I'm cooped up indoors all day, which on a really hot, humid day, maybe that's a good thing. But
But you're around a bunch of sick people too, right? Like that's
yeah,
another thing.
yeah, that's the other thing that makes it stressful, because when you leave work, there's a certain amount of emotional component to it where, you take care of somebody, and even though you're done taking care of them, it's just hard to stop thinking about it. I mean, I would say everyone that works in healthcare, we want our patients to get better. And that's why we do what we do. We want nothing more for people to get better and feel better.
What would be your preferred trade if you had to do it over?
I probably would be an electrician, I think, or a plumber. Those two would be probably my top two. But
what appeals to you about those two trades?
I enjoy, I know some people might think this is weird. I enjoy the complexity of the codes that applies to those two trades. So I just enjoy the breadth of knowledge that you have to be able to do it well. When you really do a good work and put in a neat installation, I just find it extremely satisfying. And the other reason that I really like those trades is, I mean, there's certainly a lot of heavy things you have to deal with, but I think it's a little easier than being a framing contractor, for example, and, hauling 2x12s around all day. That would just be, I think, more of the ergonomics of the job is just a lot harder on your body. So I think that's another reason it would make me go into a mechanical trade. Although I have to say I'd be torn. That's one reason why I love emergency medicine, because even when I was going through medical school and you have to pick what specialty you're going to do, it's hard. I've always kind of had, I guess you could say I've been a master of all trades, jack of all trades, master of none. And it's one thing I like about emergency medicine. I do orthopedic stuff. We're, closing lacerations. We're managing abdominal pain. We do a lot of cardiology, pulmonology, neurology, and we take care of strokes, and we do some OBGYN. We do a little bit of everything. And that's actually one of the things that I really love most about it.
I think that's cool. So what's the next project around the house, or is it in someone else's house? What do you got going?
Well, right now I just finished putting some trim in my house and some hallways. I made some plinth blocks and put those in, and
to upgrade, or was it missing?
It was an upgrade. So I did that, and I have a lot of air sealing to do in my attic. But right now it's just too hot up there, so I'm going to let that go till I guess probably mid-fall. And then the next thing is, in our kitchen cabinets, we're going to make new doors for all the cabinets. We're going to put some nice raised panel doors on, and that'll be the next thing that keeps me busy for the next month or two.
You got them lined up, man.
Yeah.
So what's your preferred air sealing strategy for the attic, the attic, the ceiling on your second floor?
Well, what I'm going to do right now is I have cellulose insulation in there. So I'm just going to kind of rake that back, and I'm going to use just a can of spray foam to go around all the perimeter walls, the top plates to the drywall, and most of the penetrations, all the pipes and things that go through, I noticed they're not adequately air sealed at all.
Do you have can lights to deal with too?
Yes, I do. So I'm going to use those mineral wool can covers that go over there.
Cool.
And seal those.
I wish you lived closer. We could hang out and compare notes. I could ask you medical questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it would be the best of friends if we lived together.
What about, do you have any lingering problems around the house that you're either happily or unhappily ignoring and just don't want to do them, or you don't have that kind of problem?
The biggest problem that I have sometimes is I get a job done. And at the time that I get it done, I'm satisfied with it because it's, the current knowledge that I have, it was adequate to me at that time. And then what happens is you read too many articles in JLC or Fine Home, especially some of those Get Your House Right columns with Marianne Cusado. All of a sudden you're like, oh no, I put the trim in and it's just not, I should have put a base in that was an inch wider. It's not right. And I try not to be bothered by it, but it always gets the best of me, and I have to take it out. And that's actually why I'm putting these plinth blocks and new base in my hallways, because I had trim that just I didn't realize at the time, but it wasn't architecturally proportioned correctly.
So would it have bothered you if you didn't know that it should have bothered you?
Oh no, until get enlightened that it's not architecturally proportional correct. I'm fine with it.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Anything you want to ask or tell our listeners?
The main thing I would say is just please be safe. In regards to COVID-19, I think the best thing to do is be vigilant with, if you wear a mask, wash your hands, and just keep a little bit of distance, that's all it takes. It's not really a whole lot to, prevent the spread of this and hopefully get this under control. And for reasons I don't fully understand, people just don't want to do those things. When
you see folks in the store, do you want to tell them to pull the mask up over their nose or put it on?
Yeah, I'd like to, but, I generally don't really approach people and start telling them what they need to be doing. It's, I think the news is at least doing a good job of at least trying to spread that information out there, and there's only so much you can do. Again, in terms of construction projects, again, it's a few simple things: wearing your safety glasses, using some fall protection, and being safe on ladders. Or actually, another thing I do a lot is I use scaffolding whenever possible. I think that's so much safer than working off a ladder.
I tell people to listen to that little voice in their head, because anytime I don't, bad things happen, it seems like.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you, Dr. Art Henderson, for joining me, and thanks all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to the FHB podcast at taunton.com, and please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody, and thanks for listening.